don't know what he's up to. He's picking me like chicken, shucking me like corn, stewing me like an ice.
Now, the disruptor-in-chief, Elon Musk, who apparently has adopted the alias, at least he changed his social media handle to Harry Balls, tweeted this morning, democracy in America is being...
Yo, it's your boy, the Tesla King, Elon Musk. The boys always make my rocket shoot straight up, no homo. You bout to listen to the #1 JFK-related podcast on planet Mars. Now plug in your neural link for two numbnuts who aren't a waste of government spending, the BBB&JOEB.
Here's the BBB&JOEB, and the BBB&JOEB, rap cock and Joe Rally. BBB&JOEB, and the BBB&JOEB, rap cock and Joe Rally. We're coming in, only seeking the truth about JFK. It's the long coming podcast crew. Tell 'em, Joe, here we go.
And here we go.
Here we go indeed, Joseph and folks. Welcome in. This is episode number 332 of the Lone Gunman podcast. That's right. And just to reiterate, if you wasn't here on Wednesday, you missed a great show that we did for our members only. Who, by the way, if you'd like to become a channel member, there is a link in the description and makes it very easy to do so. You get 4 extra shows a month. You can't beat it. But
You really can't?
we had a great show, and we talked a little bit. We were invited to go on Matt Crumpton's podcast, Solving JFK. So if you have not checked that out yet, seek out his channel and go blow it up. Hammer the like button, do your thing, people. And write some kind words over there, because there's people over there that are writing not so kind words about your boys here. And
Are there?
About it? Yeah.
Oh, I checked yesterday, and it was like at least 10-1 positive to negative. And,
Well, you should have checked it today, Joe, because
maybe I should have.
yeah, they got you pretty hard.
Maybe.
And they got me good, but they got you harder.
That's okay.
I felt a little bad.
I'm a big boy, bro.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But we did have a great time on Solving JFK, and Rob, being the podcast legend he is, recorded last Friday live with us, the next day on Saturday for Quick Hits, on Monday evening with Matt Crumpton, on Wednesday for members only, and now again here on Friday night.
I also spent 2 hours with Janet Bannister last night.
Oh, I didn't do that. I forgot about that. How was that?
It was okay. Yeah, it was good. Making some progress. We were helping her out with a little bit with her season 2 outline. She had some questions about some things regarding Guy Bannister, and it was really cool. Yeah, I got to hang there with her and her sisters.
Her sisters were there.
Yeah, very, very nice. Everybody was very nice, and yeah, we had a good time. Like I said, it was a couple hours, and she's very meticulously detailed in her preparation. I will say this.
She is, and you could tell that from her season 1.
We had a gigantic spreadsheet, and it was just full of bullet points, because she's going to be going into Bannister in New Orleans for season 2. And as everybody knows, there's a lot to that. And of course, her being somewhat impartial, or wanting to be somewhat impartial, or come off as impartial. Mm-hmm. She's trying to look at things from both sides of the spectrum, the conspiracy angle and the lone nutter perspective about Guy Bannister.
And him being a part of her family, right? That as well. She's trying
Yeah,
to like balance all.
There's been a lot of allegations over the years concerning Guy Bannister. Some
Mhm.
some good, some not so good, some unsavory. And with anything, when it comes to your personal family, you know, she has certain reservations about some things. But like I kind of told her, I was like, look, you just got to put it out there. The good, the bad, the ugly, you know, and you have to put it into the perspective of the times. This was 60 some years ago. America was a much different place then. You know, people that were, like I said, around 60 then, you know, they come from a different time. I mean, this is like your great grandparents, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, even my grandparents, you know, harbored some racial issues
Of
because that's
course,
just the way they were raised.
it's a different time. Yeah.
Yeah. Not that they were, you know, out burning crosses and wearing white uniforms and
Right.
hoods, but you know, it was just a different time. You know, they were raised a certain way, and
Yeah.
you know, in the South, and just the way it was.
Yeah, you have to take it in context of the time period for sure.
Yeah. So, you know, I just kind of reassured her, said, look, you know, don't worry about the blowback. It is what it is. It's out of your hands. There's nothing you can control. It's just the facts. And so just be open and honest, or people are going to come after you for not being open and honest. So,
Mm-hmm.
it was a good call. We got a lot accomplished, and hopefully I left her with more questions than answers, as I love to do here on this show.
Yeah. So
And here,
6 out of 8 nights, including this Friday and last Friday and this Friday.
yeah. So technically 6 podcasts and 8 nights.
Wow.
I'm a fucking machine, Joe.
You are. No one can deny that.
Machin, El Machina.
Yeah.
So before we get started, let's welcome in the folks. Joe, we got Tiny Dancer first in line. Hello, Tiny. And Sally.
Oh, she's not late tonight. Good job, Tiny.
Yeah, there's a line I'd like to get in. Paul, but Paul did. No, Trey did. Trey, Paul, what's up, fellas? Bungled, what's up, Bungled? Paul's in the house. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Big Mike is always in the house. What's up, Fort Worth, Texas, in the house? Let's see here.
Ruby's in the house. She's looking at me as I just said her name.
Scott is in the house. Hello, Scott. Hello, Scott. Jack is in the house. What's up, Jack? You listen to the replay.
Jack.
Fire. You damn right, it's fire. Always is fire, if we do say so ourselves.
We might
Stephen Clausen, what is up? That is a somewhat new name. So what's up?
And we have a few dozen new subscribers from the podcast on Wednesday since it dropped. So
yeah,
anyone that's come over from Solving JFK, we're happy to have you here. And you'll be happy to learn that Matt is going to come on in 2 weeks and kind of bullshit with us. And we're happy that you enjoyed it enough to subscribe and come over here.
See. South to West is in the house. Yes, I am grinding, bud. I am grinding.
Never stops.
Never. Paula's in the house. Hi, Paula.
Good evening, Paula.
All right. That looks like our roll call for class is in. Welcome in, everyone. So a couple things have happened, Joe.
And Lee. Hello, Lee.
Did I miss Lee?
No, he just mentioned. He just commented.
Oh, okay. Yeah, welcome in, Lee. There he is. So a couple things have happened. Big news. Clint Hill passed away, right? We got the news, I think, late last Friday or Monday? I don't know. Anyway, rest in peace, Clint Hill.
The only guy that made an effort in the Secret Service. Yeah. And, I was messaging and kind of messing with Mike. And I was like, well, he was kind of a Warren Commission defender, almost like a gatekeeper of the Secret Service. But at the end of the day, he was the only person that sprung into action. Everyone else was looking around like, oh, what do I do? So
Yeah.
props to him. You can't take that away from him. You cannot.
Yeah. All the nonsense later on in life with the different stories and all that jazz, whatever, but props to him. He pulled a 30-year younger wife. He must have been doing something right. So props to Clint Hill.
Yeah.
Um,
Rob, I have an analogy. Is he kind of like the Lavelle of the DPD for the Secret Service?
I wouldn't say that much. And I've seen people say that he was a gatekeeper for the Secret Service, which, I understand. I mean,
well, he protected his
did
fellow.
his thing, and I'm sure they treated him well. As you said, he was the only one to do anything that day. And he stayed there for I'm not sure how long after the assassination with the Secret Service. But I'm pretty sure that he stayed on as Jackie's personal protection, if you will, after that. And may have even there's been rumors of certain romantic interludes there as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He was a good-looking guy back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen the movie The Bodyguard, right?
I have not recently.
And I will always love you. Okay, I'll shut the fuck up right now because that was horrible.
That was great with the vape smoke coming out of the mouth. I was like, that was like pretty good. I might screenshot that later.
Yeah, do not use that as the short.
No.
Or you're fired. Okay. So RIP Clint Hill.
Yes.
Bravo to him for actually doing something that day. And I don't blame him for gatekeeping. That was his organization. Through and through, you're not going to do something to screw up your pension. What I'm saying?
Rob, do you know how long he stayed on the back of the presidential limo? Did he go all the way to Parkland on it? Did he put himself up like in the back seat? I can't remember. I know
he was riding on it most of the way because he could not get into the back seat because the president is slumped over
right
into Jackie's lap. I think he pretty much rode like right on the back of the seat the whole way.
Almost the whole way. Huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a true American hero shit right there. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an iconic image, right? Him running up.
Easy.
No, it's definitely an iconic image, as I was saying. It's big part of the Zapruder film. But let's get into our topic for tonight, Mr. Rob. He rode down the freeway there, according to photos. Yeah, I know that. I was just not sure if he rode the whole way.
Yeah.
I'm guessing probably because they're not going to stop it, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there was much room there in the back seat because of the jump seats. And he probably just
held on,
covered him up, and held on for dear life. I said, "Let's go."
As many were holding on for dear life.
Go, 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 go. He was white and knuckling it. Yeah, because Paul said there were photos. Yes, I did know that. So yeah, rest in peace, Clint Hill. You were the man.
Yeah. They keep dying off, fewer in every year. And
they do.
As we talked about on Wednesday, and we were kind of making fun of the task force.
Well, let's scratch one off the hottie task force hottie list of people to interview about this.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll have more luck with all the medical doctors. Oh wait, they're all dead too. Well, we scratched
or
them
the
off.
Warren Commission.
Yeah, they're all
Council.
they older than dirt, and it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter what they have to say. So let's scratch them off the list as well.
Yeah. And we were referring to a tweet by Anna Paulina Luna saying she's going down to Dallas with the task force to interview firsthand witnesses.
Yeah.
And we're not going to rehash that, but members only people will know that.
Let's just say there ain't many left in Dallas, and the ones that are, well, you know who you are.
And you may as well not listen to them 61 years later and just.
We see you, Buell. We see you.
So, hey, Frank.
All right,
G. All right, go, sir.
Tonight, I came across an article from many, many moons ago, kind of written about this weird convergence at the Cabana Motor Hotel Lodge. Now, I'm going to pop back up the cover photo for this very episode here because it has a very glorious picture of the Cabana in all its glory in the late 60s. I believe this picture was taken in 1967. As you can see, it was quite the fancy spot, Joe.
Doesn't look like a motel.
No, it was a motor hotel is what they called it.
Right.
That means you could drive right up to some bitch park and stay there. Now, it was quite fancy. It had, lighted fountains in the front. And as many hotels did back then, they had I guess there was a theater inside where singers, lounge singers, big names would come, before there was arenas.
Mm-hmm.
They would do the rounds at the hotels.
Yeah.
And, often making these places a destination instead of just a room for the night. These, like you can roll up, they'd have like Frank Sinatra performing, 3 nights, and
Yeah.
they would pack that hotel to the gills and sell to the guests. And I mean, imagine how many rooms they sold and food that they sold if they had a big name singer there, over the weekend or something. I mean, so that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah, it's kind of like a residency in Vegas these days, right?
Yeah, something kind of like that, like the Dead and Company at the Sphere.
Yeah.
The Grateful Dead live at the Cabana Hotel in Dallas.
Hey, I would hit that show.
Hell yeah! Just stay away from the balcony.
Yeah,
for sure. Bad things happen around balconies, Joe.
That is true. That is very true.
And I don't know, Joe might have a little bit more here in a little bit about the history or what happened to the Cabana Hotel. Something interesting. Well, we'll get to that. Was the Cabana downtown Dallas? The Cabana was, I believe, right off the Stemmons Freeway.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So yes, it was back then. It was probably what you would call the outskirts, maybe, but it was still close to downtown, fairly. Yeah, the Beatles and other rock bands stayed at the Cabana. So that tells you that this place was thank you, Paula, that this place was, one of the swankier joints, if you will, back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And fun fact, Joe, about the Beatles, as you know, the invasion came mere months after JFK's assassination. Their invasion of America. And as they landed at Love Field and they were making their way to the Cabana, they drove through Dealey Plaza and pretended like they were getting shot in the back of the car.
Really?
Yeah.
Stop it.
No shit. True story. And they were laughing and giggling and pretending they were getting shot in the back of the car as they were driving through Dealey Plaza.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, these are young kids at the time, whatever.
Yeah, they're tripping. Yeah.
Yeah, they're riding high. Probably literally. All right, so the cabana. The more we checked into the cabana, I was like, okay, well, there's a lot of interesting things going on there, and one of the main things is Jack Ruby visits the Cabana Motor Hotel the night before the assassination as part of his, I guess, whirlwind tour of whatever the hell he was doing the night before the assassination, and we'll get more into that for sure. But I just wanted to go through and read a little bit about who all was at the Cabana that weekend, because it's a very interesting list. So
Definitely is.
At the Cabana that weekend is a friend of Jack Ruby's named Lawrence Myers. And he is from Chicago, where Jack Ruby is from.
Mm-hmm.
Allegedly, the story goes that this guy was a big swinging dick businessman, right? Lots of money. And often traveled to Dallas and would stay at the Adolphus and would go across the street and hang out at the Carousel Club. And I think the first time he went there, him and Jack Ruby really got on very well, because in the course of talking, of course, he found out that Jack was from Chicago, and of course they had something in common then, and they could go reminisce, and like I said, Lawrence Myers was still living in Chicago, but every time he would go hang out with Jack, and they became somewhat of friends, right? And does it mean anything? I don't know. I mean, we'll dive in more into who Lawrence Myers was, but along with Lawrence Myers was a blue-eyed blonde floozy whore by the name of Jean Ace, I believe her name was. The dig there, and we'll get more into this here in a little bit, is that during the course of the Garrison investigation, they investigated calls made from G. Ray Gill's office, specifically. And they couldn't really pin down who made the call because it's strictly coming from an office line, and there was lots of people in G. Ray Gill's office. There were secretaries and investigators like David Ferry. Now, of course, Garrison would try to say that David Ferry made the call to this number, and we also have calls made to that number by Jack Ruby as well. So he was trying to turn this into some kind of a weird connection, which is why we're here talking about this whole thing this evening. Now, also at the Cabana that evening was Lawrence Myers' brother Eddie and his wife Thelma, and possibly his son. We're not sure, because Eddie, Thelma, and his son had been in Mexico previously to this, to coming back and staying in Dallas. His brother Eddie was there as a Pepsi Cola distributor for the Pepsi Cola conference. The same one that Nixon was speaking at. It was happening in Dallas that weekend as well.
Yeah, I believe he was from New York, wasn't he?
Who?
Edward.
I don't know.
Okay.
All I know is he was Lawrence Myers' brother.
Yeah, I have a couple things on him.
So if Lawrence is from Chicago originally, my guess would be that Eddie was from Chicago originally, but maybe living in New York at the time. I don't know.
Okay.
Also staying at the Cabana that weekend, a fellow by the name of Jim Braden, aka Eugene Hale Brading. This is why Jim Garrison had a giant hard on for Jim Braden, trying to get him extradited from California to New Orleans so he could implicate him possibly in the assassination conspiracy.
Yes, famously caught in the Daltex building.
Yeah, and arrested.
Yeah.
But subsequently released. But we'll get more into Jim Braden here in a little bit. Along with Jim Braden, I believe, who was it, Joe? Morgan?
That would be
Wasn't Frank Morgan, wasn't
Morgan Brown.
Morgan Brown.
The oil producer,
Yeah.
8255 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles.
Brown and Root.
Yeah, and I believe Braden was from Los Angeles, right? Or came from it? Yeah.
Yeah, and according to author Peter Noyes, Braden is alleged to have paid a visit to the offices of the Hunt Oil Company the day before the assassination.
Synchronicity.
The same day, Jack Ruby drove a young woman named Connie Trammell to those same offices for a job interview with Lamar Hunt.
Yeah.
Hunt Security Chief Paul Rothermel would later state that Ruby himself did not enter Hunt's office that day, but Rothermel was certain at some point Braden did. Braden, however, has always maintained that only his associates visited the Hunts. Now, there's also a Jim Braden, David Ferry connection. Why not? Of course there is. You can't make this stuff up, folks. So, David Ferry worked out of room 1707 in the Père Marquette building in New Orleans, and that was the office of G. Ray Gill, Carlos Barcelo's attorney. A check of federal records and correspondence showed that in addition to his office in Beverly Hills, California, Brading also shared office space on occasion in the Père Marquette building a few doors away from Ferry in room 1701. 1701 was the office of an oil geologist, Vernon Main Jr., and Braden did receive mail at that address and at one time informed parole authorities that he would be working out of the Main's office while he was in New Orleans. So, there's that. Did Lawrence Myers know Jim Braden? Myers told the House Select Committee that he had never heard of Braden and knew nothing about him being at the Cabana on November 21st, 63.
Yep, he did.
And we'll get more into his House Select Committee assassination stuff here in a little bit. Now, also deposed by the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1978, Jim Braden expressed anger and bitterness towards author Peter Noyes, who, quote, dug my grave and completely ruined my life, end quote, creating charges that I was connected in a sinister conspiracy to assassinate former President John F. Kennedy. Whatever the committee can do to straighten the matter out and get to the truth of it, I would appreciate, stated Braden, born Brading, because I want my name cleared and I want the stigma removed from my name and my family's name. And this is, of course, some 15 years after the assassination. He's still a little pissed off about that. So, Joe, I'm going to hand things over to you, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into the Myers and some of these other Focalton here in the Cabana.
Yep. And as we discussed on Remembers Only, I think like 3 or 4 weeks ago, when Ruby was arrested and Ralph Paul, his business partner, who we will touch on as well, took over operations of the Carousel Club, he tried changing the name before he had to shut it down.
And I believe Ralph Paul was eating dinner at the Cabana the night before the assassination, along with Ruby and the Myers and
Yeah. That's a big.
If I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken, but I don't think I am.
I believe you are not. So, yeah, I looked into a little bit of Lawrence Myers, and granted, I didn't know much about him whatsoever, but I thought we'd start with the HSCA biographical summary on him because that will kind of lay the baseline in a sense. Lawrence Myers was born December 16th, 1910 in New York. Spent a number of years working in various California cities after leaving New York as a teenager and settled in the Chicago area. Staying there for 8 years, there is an indication that he once went by the name of Hyman Victor Myers. I know, right? In 78, he was living in Dallas, having moved there in March 64 for business purposes. He married in 1936 and had 3 children. In 63, Lawrence Myers was a sales manager in the sporting goods division of Euro Manufacturing Company, West Monroe Street, Chicago. In 64, he moved to a similar position with a competitor, Farber Brothers, Memphis, Tennessee. I'm just going to skip some of his later work timeline, as that's not completely relevant, but there is no indication that this is the HSCA summary here. There was no indication that Myers had engaged in criminal activities, had a criminal record, or had been the subject of any criminal or related investigations, in quotes, besides the assassination of JFK. He did not appear to have any political or law enforcement connections. But let's see. The Warren Commission considered Myers to be a personal friend of Jack Ruby with no intimidation or of criminal or similar links, and it merely tried to examine the extent of this friendship. Myers' impressions of Ruby and Myers' possible knowledge of any of Ruby's actions or associates. Myers' commission testimony of August 24th, 64, taken by Burt Griffin of the Warren Commission, was therefore direct and somewhat brief. He was accommodating and responsive, but his recollection of dates was somewhat poor. And that's going to be key when we get into his HSCA here, Rob. As it was during his 1978 committee deposition. Yes, quite poor. Myers told the Warren Commission that he first met Jack Ruby by chance at the Carousel nightclub, although he was not certain of the exact date. He said he had known Ruby for 6 or 7 years, predating Ruby's ownership of the Carousel Club. In his 1978 deposition for the HSCA, Myers said that he first met Ruby at a sporting goods show in Dallas in 1961 or early 62, to which Ruby had gone because of his interest in barbells and physical culture. Is that weights?
Yeah.
Right? Like the barbells, like free weights used in the gym. Okay. I wasn't sure about that.
Ruby was very fitness oriented, Joe.
Yes.
A fan of swimming at the YMCA.
That's true.
And, of the twist board.
Yeah. Yes.
Of which he gave a big demonstration at the Cabana.
Yeah. And I guess that physical culture comment makes sense. But Lawrence Myers shared that interest, and they had also had their mutual Chicago backgrounds and religious beliefs. They were both Jewish. While their relationship has been described by a carousel dancer as casual, Myers stated in 1964 that he had seen Ruby 20 to 35 times since their first meeting. They always met in Dallas at the carousel, as Myers had occasion to make frequent business trips to Dallas. In 78, Myers amended the number of contacts to 12. So he kind of cut that down by a third there. There is no indication that any pre-63 visits by Myers were relevant. Myers visited Dallas at least 4 times in 63, One visit occurred in October. Most of the details concerning this visit came from Joyce Lee McDonald, a dancer at the Carousel, who stated that she first met Myers on October 10th, 1963 at the club and saw him there for several evenings that week. She once had a few drinks with him. Interesting. Only a few drinks, Rob? Let's see. Myers' testimony indicated that he first met McDonald, the stripper, that week at the Texas State Fair, where McDonald had a part-time job involving a film promotion, and they go into this whole thing about a check that bounced. The incident seemed trivial, but Myers was also in Dallas during the week of the assassination, arriving from Chicago with a female companion, Jean West. Put a bookmark in that name, ladies and gents, who also used the name of Jean Asse. Myers had first met West in Chicago a week or two before the assassination at a lounge in the apartment building where West lived. Myers described her as a, quote, semi-professional hooker. So he takes this semi-professional hooker with him to Dallas, Rob. They arrived in Dallas on November 20th, 1963, registering at the Dallas Ramada Inn. They moved to the Cabana on November 21st, 1963. Myers was not able to explain fully why the switch in motels happened and offered the possibilities that the Cabana was completely booked or that he needed sleep after arriving in Dallas. And the Ramada was located near the airport. So Myers conducted his normal business activities during the day on November 21st, 1963, accompanied by his Gumar he had met a week or two before. Visited Ruby at the Carousel Club that evening. That would be November 21st, the night before the assassination. Although in 1978, his recollection of this meeting was very vague, virtually non-existent. The Carousel visit lasted for approximately 1 hour. They had drinks and discussed show personalities, the acts in the Carousel, and other things. Myers told the Warren Commission that Ruby was upset that evening over the firing of Janet Conforto, a.k.a. Jada, who we have talked about her leaving Dallas. I believe it was the morning of the 22nd, Rob. And another performer, although the dismissal had occurred 1 month earlier. Myers and West returned to the Cabana after having invited Ruby to join them there for a drink. Ruby arrived at the Cabana at approximately midnight, where he met Myers and West and was introduced to Edward Myers, Lawrence Myers' brother, and his wife. Edward Myers was in Dallas attending a convention related to his New York bottling and distribution business. Ruby stayed at the Cabana for only a few minutes, allegedly, and had to return to his club. Myers' next contact with Ruby occurred on Saturday night, so we're going from Thursday night to Saturday night here, November 23rd, 1963, although the exact circumstances are muddled. When interviewed following the assassination, Myers had spoken of a telephone call to his room at the Cabana at approximately 10 p.m. from Ruby. They talked for about 15 to 20 minutes, were unable to arrange a meeting that night, and made tentative plans to have dinner the following night. Okay, so they're talking about Friday. That's when the call was made. Myers told the FBI that on Sunday, November 24th, Myers went to McKinley, Texas on business, then to Sherman, Texas, intending to play golf. Shout out Perpetual Concepts. But this was canceled after news of the shooting of Oswald arrived. Myers told the committee that he had received the news of the shooting while driving to his golf date and that he continued and played around the golf, because why not? And shot his, quote, worst round ever. Great added context there, huh?
Hungover, maybe.
Or maybe worried about something else you're involved in. Golf is mental. If you're bugging out, you're not going to play well. I can attest to that.
Look, this guy had been up half the night banging this whore, drinking. Give him a break, man. Yeah, he could
Okay.
shoot. He could shoot a 120 that morning.
Fair enough. I respect that. On November 25th, Myers and West flew back to Chicago. So that would be that Monday. And Myers said he never saw West again. So the Gumar he brought to Dallas, he never saw again following their return to Chicago.
You know why he didn't see her again?
Wow.
Because Lawrence Myers was married, and he had to go and talk to the Warren Commission about this indiscretion of a trip with his side piece.
Yeah.
And his wife got a little pissed off about it, as one would.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So essentially, he got caught in the middle of something and probably had to have a tough conversation.
Very
with
bad timing. Thanks a lot, Jack Ruby.
Yeah. So the commission also questioned several other witnesses as to whether or not they knew or heard Lawrence Myers, Ralph Paul, who was Ruby's business associate, Eva Grant, Alice Nichols, and Curtis Crayford, Rob, all said they had no recollection of this individual, Myers, although Myers had stated that he knew Eva Grant. Ruby's roommate, George Senator, said he remembered meeting Myers at the carousel one night during the summer of '63, although he's not sure of the date. George Senator gave the Warren Commission a brief description of Myers and stated that he knew a little bit about his business, but not how Ruby had met him. Senator stated that he met Myers just that one time, but Myers told the FBI that he had met Senator at the carousel on several occasions and told the commission he had met Senator at least 6 times.
I don't remember a goddamn thing about him. One time I met him.
First time being shortly after he met Ruby.
I'm George Senator.
Yeah. In 1978, however, Myers stated he had met Senator only once, saying, "Hello, how are you?" Also stated he had met Abe Weinstein casually after Weinstein was out of the nightclub business, and he knew Joe Campisi, having first met him in the late 1960s or early 70s at a golf tournament. Deposition before the HSCA. This is great, Rob. I might have not included that, but
it was great.
Myers had played a golf tournament with Campisi. He goes in his. I have it actually after in a later slide. He goes, "Oh, as a matter of fact, I played a golf tournament with him just last week." Campisi. Myers is saying of Campisi, so I think his meeting him in the late 1960s, early 1970s date range might be off by about a decade. He is hedging his limits here in terms of when he met Campisi, and of course that brings up the question of why. But
probably because he's a dirty rat.
No. So I have one more document. Let me share this really quick on an early FBI document on Edward Myers, which was Lawrence Myers' brother. And this is an FBI document. It's dated 12/6, but I believe it's 12/2 or 3. And Edward Myers, who resides in Brooklyn, New York, and was the owner of the operator of Queens Beverage Company, distributor. He and his wife had planned to attend the convention of the American Bottlers of Carbonated Beverages
Carbonated beverages,
Imagine how exciting that.
otherwise known as soda pop.
Jeez. He had also decided to combine this with a vacation trip to Mexico City
Mm-hmm.
and visit his wife's sister. Prior to leaving on this trip, his brother Lawrence Myers had visited him in New York and said that he would be in Dallas, Texas during the same week. They made arrangements and met up with each other in Dallas. Edward Myers left with his wife on November 8th, 1963, and went to Mexico City. They returned from Mexico City on the 18th of November, 4 days before the assassination, via American Airlines, whatever.
And I'm sure somebody somewhere at some point has tried to tie this in with Oswald's Mexico City trip as well.
Yeah, it's a little later, but
Yeah,
like a month after. But why is he in? I mean, were they going there for the scenery? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Lawrence Myers called his brother Edward at the Adolphus Hotel in Dallas, Texas, on the evening on November 21st, 1963, that's a Thursday, to make arrangements to have dinner together. Edward Myers was unable to have dinner with his brother, but after a subsequent phone call, he did meet his brother at the Bon Vivant room of the Cabana Motel about midnight, November 21st, 1963. Myers pointed out that his reservation at the Adolphus Hotel had previously been made for him by the Pepsi Cola Company. Okay. And there was just another FBI document, the first one interviewing Lawrence Myers. It's pretty vague, but he advised that on November 20th, he flew to Dallas, Texas, where on the night of November 20th, he stayed at the Ramada Hotel and checked into the Cabana Motel on the morning of November 21st. He stated he pursued his normal business affairs that date, and in the evening, following dinner, he went to Jack Ruby's Carousel Club. Mr. Myers stated that on this trip to Dallas, he was accompanied by Miss Jean West, who he had known casually as a resident of Chicago, Illinois. So this is the first like FBI document. I think this is 12/3. It was taken on, even though it was published 12/12. So they're being very kind with her description of Miss Jean West here, right? He described Miss West as a, quote, rather dumb but accommodating broad, end quote. That's gold. That is gold. She's dumb, but she'll do whatever I want.
Yeah.
He pointed out that his association with Miss West is not known to members of his family. Shocker. Or his business associates. When he and Miss West arrived at the Carousel Club, he introduced her to the owner, Jack Ruby, and Ruby joined them at their table, buying Miss West 2 champagne cocktails. He stated that during the course of their stay at the club and that evening, the conversation revolved primarily around show personalities, the acts currently appearing at the club, and other items of topical interest. He advised that Miss West remained at the Carousel Club for approximately 1 hour, returning to their motel at 11 p.m. Mr. Myers stated at the Carousel Club he had invited Ruby to join him at the Cabana Motel for a drink with him and his brother, Edward Myers, and Edward's wife. Shortly thereafter, Ruby came to the motel where he was introduced to his brother and his wife. Ruby remained at the hotel for only a few minutes before he left, saying he had to return to his club, the Carousel.
Yeah.
So that's some of the HSCA and the early documents of Lawrence and Edward Myers. And I know we're going to do a little back and forth here. You're going to talk about something, and then I'll go back to them in a little bit.
Yes, yes. So let's get into a little examination of what Jack Ruby was doing the night before the assassination. Okay. On Thursday, November 21st, Jack Ruby was attending to his usual duties as the proprietor of two Dallas night spots. That would be the Carousel Club and a downtown nightclub featuring the downtown nightclub featuring striptease dancers, and the Vegas Club, a rock and roll establishment in the Oaklawn section of Dallas, which I believe his sister normally ran, but also Larry Crayford would fill in when she wasn't there. As kind of keeping an eye on things. So on Thursday, November 21st, 1963, according to the FBI report, Jack Ruby arrived at the Carousel Club around 3 p.m. on Thursday afternoon. As was his custom, he remained long enough to chat with a friend and received messages from Larry Crayford, who had taken some phone messages for him. Larry was a handyman and helper who lived in the Carousel broom closet. Ruby's evening activities on Thursday, November 21st were a combination of business and pleasure. At approximately 7:30 p.m., he drove Crayford over to the Vegas Club, which Crayford was overseeing for his sister, Eva Grant. Ruby returned to the Carousel Club and conversed for about an hour with Lawrence Myers on the phone between 9:45 and 10:45. Then Ruby went and had dinner with Ralph Paul, his close friend and financial backer, at Campese's restaurant. And I know why I made the Freudian slip earlier. It was because I think Eddie Myers' son is named Ralph, and I saw Ralph ate dinner with them as well at the Cabana. Not Ralph Paul, but Ralph Myers.
Yeah, and Rob, an hour phone conversation between guys, right?
Yeah,
It raises an eyebrow or two, maybe.
for sure. So while dining there at Campese's, Ruby spoke briefly with a Dallas Morning News employee named Don Campbell, who suggested that they go to the Castaway Club together. But Ruby declined because he's a very busy man. He doesn't have time for this shit. Okay. After that, Ruby returned to the Carousel Club, where he acted as the MC for his show and peacefully ejected an unruly patron. Get the hell out of here. At about midnight, just around midnight, Ruby joined his buddy Lawrence Myers at the Bon Vivant, the Good Life Room at the Dallas Cabana, where they met Myers' brother and sister-in-law and son. Neither Ralph Paul nor Lawrence Myers recalled that Ruby mentioned the president's trip to Dallas at all in their conversations with him the night before the assassination. Leaving Myers at the Cabana after a brief visit, I can only stay a minute just to have a drink, from a very busy man. So it's great to see you. Great to see you. Come by the club anytime. You're welcome. Here's a card. It's got your name on it. Get you in for free. So after leaving the Cabana, Ruby returned to the Carousel Club to close it down and obtain the night's receipts. He then went over to the Vegas Club and helped Larry close for the night. And somewhere around 2:30 in the morning, Jack Ruby took Larry Crayford to the Lucas B&B restaurant early in the morning on Friday, November 22nd, to have a very early breakfast or a very late dinner, whatever you want to call it, when you are eating in a restaurant at 2:30 in the morning. Okay. This is a very famous encounter because the Mary Lawrence, the waitress at the Lucas B&B restaurant, claimed that she saw Jack Ruby and Lee Harvey Oswald together. But again, as per the usual, mistaken identity here. Larry Crayford, not Lee Oswald. Okay. She even told the cops, well, if the man I saw has a scar on the top of his lip, it was Lee Harvey Oswald. But we all know it was Larry Crayford that had the scar on his lip. So let's see. Yeah, Ruby ate dinner. He had steak at the Egyptian Lounge. Was seen by Joe Campisi from 10 to 11. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything here. So let's get into a little bit about Jim Braden.
Yeah. Well, Rob, the before you go on, the Lucas B&B restaurant, and I didn't have a ton of time to look into this. I know you gave me the name, but I did a quick search, and the head waitress there was Mary Lawrence.
Yeah, that's what I said, Mary Lawrence.
Related to
who?
I'm sorry?
Related to who?
Lawrence Myers. I'm sorry. Lawrence. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot.
Joe, I think.
Sorry.
A little more sleep, sir.
Hey, I'm trying to put connections together, bro.
But maybe she was Jack Lawrence's sister, accused assassin of the president. Just throwing it out there. In Joe's head, you'll hear, who's Jack Lawrence? I got to follow up with it. Do you know who Jack Lawrence is, Joe?
Yeah, he's that Scafusa from the, was it the car place?
What car place?
Was it one of the dealerships? Or is it some guy in New Orleans? It was one of the two. Are you eating Oreos again?
Mm-hmm.
Silently?
Mm-hmm.
I respect that.
I was hoping you'd have a long answer who Jack Lawrence is so I could chew my Oreo in peace. But you don't.
No. Why don't you tell everyone?
How about you go listen to episode number... I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, he was the guy. No, I said the car thing. He was the guy who...
Downtown Lincoln Mercury.
Yeah. I had the car thing right. Who Lee Harvey Oswald allegedly asked to test drive a car.
No, not him. Different guy. Jack Lawrence is the guy that came into it late for work the morning of the 22nd in the afternoon. Pale as a ghost, white as a sheet, and proceeded to puke in the bathroom, claiming he was sick, covered in mud. He left his demonstrator behind the grassy knoll fence because traffic was so bad. He decided to leave it there and walk the rest of the way. But I digress. So maybe Mary Lawrence is Jack Lawrence's long lost sister. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. I had the first and last names confused there. Lawrence, Martin, Morales, Monkey, David, who knows?
Okay. Let's see here. So the Warren report refers to Ruby's time at the Cabana as a, quote, brief visit. According to Seth Cantor in the book The Ruby Cover-Up in 1978, he reported Ruby spent only a short time in the bon vivant room with Myers, and his movements for the next 2 hours are unknown. But at 2:30, Ruby telephoned an employee, Crayford, at his own club and said he was still at the Cabana. Seth Cantor wrote, Ralph Paul said Ruby could be very secretive about his comings and goings, if you know what I'm saying. Ruby didn't want his club employees to know when he slipped out of town or whose bed he slipped in and out of in order to keep them from stealing his profits, Paul said. He could show up at any time, Joe. That's why he's going back and forth between everywhere in the carousel, everywhere in the carousel, everywhere in the carousel. Running here, running there. He can show up anytime. Don't take my money. Checking the receipts. But that's interesting. Ruby did slip in and out of Cuba on at least 3 occasions, keeping 2 of the trips secret even from his friends. He was secretly in Las Vegas for 2 days the week before the assassination.
Mhm.
Ruby kept his appearances at Parkland and at the Dallas police station on Friday and Saturday secret. He concealed the relationships he had with a wide range of people, such as Tom Davis, the gun runner, and such as a mystery telephone voice he dealt with in the days leading up to the shooting. Ruby was getting a series of phone calls at the carousel from an unidentified man who would never leave a message when Ruby was out with Larry Crayford. And Larry asked Ruby about these strange phone calls, but Ruby told him to mind his own goddamn business. According to Mary Farrell, there is evidence that Ruby left the Cabana and returned sometime during the 2 hours of missing time, during which Ruby was known to have been at the Cabanas. Jack got angry with the Cabana Motel employees for not telling him about a telephone call that had come in for him. He searched the records of the Bon Vivant room, booth B26, for the name. They think, Joe, that it was Martin or Martins. The Secret Service checked Jack Martin and Leighton Martins out to see if they were the mysterious man who tried to call Jack Ruby at the Cabana.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Wild.
It always comes back to the Martins.
And of course, they speculate here a bit. While neither New Orleans private investigator Jack S. Martin, who first implicated Dave Ferry with Lee Harvey Oswald, nor Ferry's associate Leighton Martins were ever known to have been to Dallas, the mysterious Mr. Martin could have been in of the Six Flags manager James H. Martin, or singer Dean Martin, for that matter. What?
It says Dean Martin on that?
Yeah, that's
Really?
a joke.
Oh, okay. It
There was
says
also-
James H though. It says James H though, huh?
Yeah.
Huh. Wow.
There was also a Uruguayan gun dealer named Johnny Martin who also entered the anti-Castro community at this time, and Ruby also knew a guy named Martin
Yeah,
who
that
ran
was the guy,
another
Rob.
Dallas nightclub.
That was the guy, Rob, who we explored during our Martin presentation that befriended Sarita Odio.
Yeah.
From Uruguay, and offered her arms, and this was before the Odio incident, right?
Well, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Mr. Martin could also conceivably be Johnny Martino, a.k.a. Jack Martin, a.k.a. Juan Martin, who was in Dallas around that time, but according to his wife, was at home in Florida at the time. Martino, however, could have been trying to reach Ruby by phone. As a former Santo Traficante casino employee and Johnny Rosselli's roommate, Martino was a major player in the CIA mafia plots to kill Castro. And according to a Catholic priest and a social worker, Martino and a Colonel Philip Castor were stirring up the Dallas anti-Castro community. In addition, Martino was associated with Sylvia Odio, who was visited on September 24th, 1963, one of whom was named Leon Oswald, an ex-Marine crack shot who could kill the president if he wanted to. Ruby's search for Mr. Martin, who may also be the carousel's mysterious caller, indicates that he was left and returned to the Cabana Lounge that night, just as Beverly Oliver claims, and that he at least tried to meet or talk by phone with Mr. Martin, someone who is not known to or investigated by the Warren Commission. It is not recorded what Ruby did after he left Meyer's table at the Cabana at 12:30, but at 2:30 a.m. he met up with and joined Larry Crayford at the Lucas B&B restaurant next door to the Vegas Club, which Crayford had managed and closed that night. Between 3:30 and 4 in the morning, Ruby dropped Crayford off at the carousel and returned home to his apartment, where his lover, George Senator, was already asleep and waiting in bed for him. So there's a little fuckery going on here, folks, if you will. So let's get that out of the way first.
I don't think Martino was ever a roommate of Rosselli. I think they might have gotten that confused with Trafficante. Or, well, they weren't in Cuban prison together, but I don't know when Martino would have been a roommate of Rosselli. But
I'm just telling you what the paper says, Joe.
fair enough, fair enough.
I have no idea what is real and what is not.
Interesting that they're kind of combining Martin with Martino, though, right?
Well, as we did.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going about, a couple different ways. Sorry, I'm trying to collect mine. Here we go. Trying to get my notes straight here. I got too much shit going on. Okay. Now, of course, this from the don't put too much stock into it file. Okay. We have some words from Robert Tosh Plumley and James Files. Okay. Now, the only reason I'm reading this is because they said it. Around 7 a.m., and this is from James Files' video, Confession of an Assassin. Around 7 a.m., the morning of November 22nd, I drove to the Dallas Cabana Motel to pick up Johnny Rosselli, who was staying there. Next, I drove Rosselli to a pancake house just off a major highway in Fort Worth. Inside the pancake house, Rosselli met with Jack Ruby, who gave him a 5x9 envelope. Among other things, in the envelope was, quote, a map in there of the exact motorcade route that it would take through Dealey Plaza. Johnny Rosselli said, well, they only made one change. That was when Rosselli informed me that they were coming off Main Street onto Elm or onto Houston there. They made the zigzag, a little turn that they should never have made. Because that's what
When did Files say this?
1996.
Mm-hmm. And of course, what sticks out to me immediately is the Lawrence Howard allegations of receiving maps from G. Ray Gill seems suspiciously similar to that.
Yeah.
Of course, 30 years later plus.
Yeah, I know, Joe. That's why I read it, because he's putting Rosselli staying at the pancake house, or I'm sorry, staying at the Cabana Motel.
Mm-hmm.
And according to Tosh Plumley, he's the one that flew Johnny Rosselli to Dallas. So maybe Plumley, I don't know if he's ever stated that they were staying at the Cabana as part of the abort team, if you will. I don't know. But again, do with that what you will. Stick it in the horseshit file. I don't think Rosselli was staying at the Cabana, but it's interesting. Definitely. And funny you mentioned that the Thomas Beckham, Lawrence Howard thing, Joe, because I was thinking, I was like, I know Beckham said that he met Lawrence Howard at a hotel in Dallas, right? So I'm like, was it the Cabana? So I went back a little bit and I looked in his HSCA testimony, and lo and behold,
Howard's HSCA testimony?
No, Beckham's.
Okay.
Lawrence Howard was allegedly staying here at the Executive Inn, another fancy ass motor hotel with a theater, okay, and a lighted fountain in the front. Okay. So, like, if you were there that night at the Black Garter Club in the Executive Inn, sounds a little swanky, you could see the Don Jacoby Orchestra with Linda Lauren as vocalist. So, very interesting. They got a coffee shop in there. Looks like a Mexican restaurant, something Del Sol.
Yeah.
So, these places were not necessarily a dime a dozen back then, but very similar. Very similar. I believe this one was on Mockingbird Lane in Dallas.
Yeah, that's a great name, by the way. But yeah, I feel like motel was the motor inn, like that's what they used to call it back in the day. But these places, like the Cabana, was not what you would think a motel is today. As
Right.
the place
Normally today, motels are like shitty things that you can drive right up to like the door, right?
Yeah.
Not where you park in a parking lot and you have to walk in and go up the elevator to your fancy room.
Mm-hmm.
Normally motels are like one level, maybe two levels if they're, if they have something like around a pool or something. But yeah, generally they're a little more run down and less fancy than a hotel.
Yeah.
Now, when we're talking about, Joe, we were talking about David Ferry allegedly calling Gene Ace's number, right? In Chicago. The number, it was WH4-4970. Now, we kind of established and that Garrison was probably trying to reach here a little bit because he couldn't narrow down who exactly made the call. He just knew it came from G. Ray Gill's office. It could have been anybody making the call, not just David Ferry. There were clients using the phone, there were secretaries using the phone, there was Gill was using the phone.
Yeah, it was the same floor. It was the same floor they were able to narrow it down to.
Yeah, and Gill used to get pissed if David Ferry made long distance calls without,
permission
first.
Yeah.
So then the thing is, Jack Ruby, of course, had for some reason this Hooer's number as well that he had called, but it was explained away like this, Joe. That it was at certain times when Lawrence Myers visited Jack Ruby at the Carousel Club, and he called Gene from there for whatever reason, allegedly. The problem is we don't know if they were actually calling Gene, right? Because this number, if you called it, it would ring up at the main desk of an apartment building at 20 East Delaware Street in Chicago. Now, Gene Ace lived in room number 1405 in 1963. And there were only about, Joe, 146 apartments in the building in 1963. So, if you called the number, you would basically be on the phone with the hotel or the building operator, and they would say, what apartment would you like? And you say 1405, please, and then they would ring the apartment, put you through to that specific apartment. So having this number is nothing sinister. It'd be nice if they had a list of everybody that was living in this apartment building, because maybe there were some more sinister people in there than this dumb broad Gene Ace.
Yeah.
Ass. Gene Ass. They call me that because of this.
What was it? Dumb but accommodating broad.
Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of hard to, this connection between Ferry and Jean and Ruby is a big stretch. You have at least 150 people living in this apartment building. So, and there is no clear connection between Jack Ruby and David Ferry, other than Judy Baker says so. Right. Which doesn't hold too much water.
Right.
So Gene Ayers didn't meet Jack Ruby until November 21st, 1963. In person, anyway. In fact, Gene Ayers maintains that she didn't even know Lawrence Myers on September 24th, 63, the day the infamous phone call was made. She says that she and Myers met only a few weeks before the assassination through Delaware Towers building owner. This is the apartment building where she was living, Les Barker. So unless everybody here is lying, and no one has ever located even a single witness or scrap of evidence to prove Gene Ayers cannot reasonably be called a link between Ferry and Myers, much less Ferry and Ruby. No. So,
yeah, it's not definitive, but it is interesting.
It is interesting. Like I said, I would love to know who else was living in the building.
Right.
Being Chicago, there could have been like actual mobsters living in the building. Something with some substance.
Yeah, for sure.
Meat on the bone,
For sure. Rob, can you cover for me and do some comments for like 30 seconds, and I'll be right back, and I'll go into the rest of my shit.
Well, I'm going to go into Brayton, so you can do what you got to do.
All right, I'll be right back.
Okay, have a great night. All right. So Jim Brayton checked into the Cabana Motel in Dallas on November 21st, 1963. Brayton and his associates had an appointment with oil millionaire H.L. Hunt the next day on November 22nd. But Brayton would miss the meeting because there was a small thing that happened in Dallas that day called the assassination of JFK. Okay. And oh yeah, he got arrested. Which kind of threw a little wrench into things as well. So, Jim Brayton was in town on oil business, and he was actually on parole in California. And he had to let his probation officer know what he was doing, and they let him leave the state to conduct his business, right? So off he goes. Now, after he is arrested, Jim Brayton, that is, coming out of the Dow Tex building, his statement he gave to the Dallas police says, quote, "I'm here on business and was walking down Elm Street trying to get a cab, but there wasn't any. I heard people talking, saying, 'My God, the president's been shot.' Police cars were passing me down the triple underpass, and I was walking up among other people. And this building was surrounded by police officers with guns, and we were watching them. I moved up to the building across the street from the building, which was surrounded, and I asked one of the girls there if there was a telephone that I could use, and she said, 'Yeah, there's one on the third floor where I work.' So I walked through a passage to the elevator where they were getting on, and I got off on the third floor of the building with all the other people, and there was a lady using the payphone, and I asked her if I could use it when she hung up, and she said it was out of order, and I tried to use it with no success. I asked her how I can get out of the building, and she said, 'Well, there's an exit right there.' And then she said, 'Wait a minute, here's the elevator now.' So I got on the elevator and returned to the ground floor, and the colored man who ran the elevator said, 'You're a stranger in this building, son, and I was not supposed to let you up.' And he ran outside to an officer and said this to and said to this officer that he had just taken me up and down in the elevator, and the officer said for me to identify myself. So I presented him with a credit card, a carte blanche credit card, Joe, and he said, well, we have to check out everything, and took me to his superior and said for me to wait, and we will check it out. I was then taken to the sheriff's office and interrogated. Signed by Jim Braden, form number 86, the Sheriff's Department voluntary statement, which noted not under arrest in quotes. Braden listed his age as 49, home address in Los Angeles, California, office at 215 South La Cienega Boulevard in Beverly Hills, California. Yeah.
And Rob, wasn't there something about his address in New Orleans being really close to Ferry's address?
No, I already read that it was his office in New
Okay.
Orleans was right down the hall from G. Ray Gill's office in the Pere Marquette building.
Okay.
Had you been listening when I was speaking earlier, Joe, you would know.
I was in the bathroom.
No, I said it like
I'm joking. I'm joking. I know. I'm repeating it for
an
the
hour
audience.
ago. Okay. Okay. Now, Braden was a piece of shit. He was in trouble because he was accused of whining and dining women, bilking them out of money and jewelry, and then leaving them in his dust, Joe.
What was that? The like mafia boss's daughter, or was that Crayford?
That was Crayford.
Okay.
Yeah. Now this guy, Jim Braden, not a good guy. Like I said, he was charged with embezzlement for bilking rich widows by marrying them and then taking their money and killing them. The newspapers had branded him and his partner the honeymooners, and both were literally run out of Dallas by Sheriff Bill Decker, whose deputy Lummy Lewis had taken Braden into custody on Dealey Plaza shortly after the assassination. So then they contacted Braden's parole officer, and they found out that he was there on supposedly official oil business. And they did have a meeting, which included Morgan Brown at H.L. Hunt's building with Lamar Hunt, which of course did not happen due to all the hullabaloo. After Braden made his statement and the Dallas authorities released him, Braden went to Houston, checked in with a parole officer there, then went to New Orleans, Joe, where he shared office space with oil geologist Vernon Main Jr. right down the hall from G. Ray Gill at the Pierre Marquette building. And Gill served as the attorney for my boss, Carlos Marcello.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, there's a lot of mafia suppositions that you can make here. But, save it. And, of course, moving into the Garrison investigation, Garrison wanted this guy badly, trying to extradite him from California to face the music in New Orleans, but never did get him. He was looking to string this guy up as he thought he was in on the assassination because he wasn't really honest about his name, right?
Right.
It wasn't Jim Braden. Okay, he had changed his name because he had been in a lot of trouble, and his real name was Harry Eugene Bradley. So that's not good. From Camden, New Jersey. He was originally a salesman.
Not and NK said this actually. He said Braden grew up in Camden, New Jersey. What the fuck did he know about oil business?
Nothing.
He might have known something about hot sauce because Silk City is not far from Camden.
So this is Braden's mugshot, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was taken in, what's the date? 1948. So this would have been 15 years before the assassination. That's his mugshot.
Okay.
So he was probably a little older. He was born in 1914. So he was older at the time, older dude. Preyed on half dead grandmas though, so not a good guy. Not a good guy.
Was he a better guy than David Ferry? TBD. TBD.
Yeah, to be determined. They're pretty much on par with each other. So apparently there was a early JFK conference being held in 1992 by the Third Decade Society at the Newberry Library in Chicago on June 26, 1992. So 2 blocks away from where this was going down happened to be 20 East Delaware Avenue, where Gene Ass lived on September the 24th, 1963, when, as telephone records indicate, a call was received from New Orleans of G. Ray Gill. David Ferry worked for Gill on the Carlos Marcello deportation case, or the deportation case, at the time, and Gill told New Orleans DA Jim Garrison that he fired Ferry for making so many unauthorized long-distance telephone calls on my goddamn phone. AS's number was also listed among the records of Warren Commission because she was an associate of Jack Ruby's friend Lawrence Myers, who traveled from Chicago with her. They met with Ruby at his club and later in the Bon Vivant room at the Cabana Motor Hotel on the night before the assassination. So, the HSCA reports do note that Mr. Les Barker was her landlord. Then, and Lawrence Myers admitted to knowing Barker and actually owing him $3,000 in regards to a bad stock deal.
Yeah, over 30,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So by the 90s, this place had been turned into a hotel named the Talbot. It was a small, very exquisite place with a quaint sidewalk cafe. It was converted from an apartment building 4 or 5 years prior, but the building and business had been in the same family for the past 65 years. It was now operated by Mr. Basil Cromlow, and it is actually known as 20 East Delaware Place now, because it's, that sounds a little more fancier than the street or avenue. Sorry, Delaware Place. So Jack Cromlow, Basil's father, who still maintains an office there, was interviewed by phone. He does not recall Gene West or AS. As for Les Barker, he's dead. You have to dig him up to talk to him, said Cromlow. Who also said they have not kept any records from rent, receipts, references, whatever, that could have been used to trace AS. They're thrown away, burn up, or something every 10 years, he said. So After sending a report on these efforts to Jerry Rose, he told me that Peter Whitney in Canada had recently located Gene A.S. I love Peter Whitney stuff. I called Peter on Sunday, November 1st, 1992. He said he obtained her address and phone number from the Minneapolis, Joe, phone directory, which I had checked unsuccessfully in 1977. Turns out she was living there with a John T. Martin. No, I'm joking. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be lovely.
Wow. So this JFK researcher Peter Whitney tracked down Gene A.S. and he called her and talked to her briefly. She confirmed that she was indeed the Gene A.S. who was in Dallas at the time of the assassination. I told her I was doing some research and asked her if it would be okay for me to write to her and ask her some questions. Because I had her on the phone, I tried to ask her a couple things like why she used the alias of Gene West. And she said, "Look, I refuse to answer any questions on the phone, but I'll be glad to get a letter from you and write back." Sorry, that was my horror voice of 60 years smoking Camel Unfiltered. According to Whitney, in his initial conversation with her, Gene asked him a question. She asked me if Larry Myers was still alive. He had a great cock. No. So she must still be a little apprehensive even after all these years to speak. He would be 82 if he was still alive. And I told her I wasn't sure, but I doubted it. Whitney then originally wanted to meet with AS on his way to the Chicago conference in April of 93, but decided to visit her on the return trip. He says, "When I arrived in Minneapolis, I gave her a call, got a busy signal, and on the assumption she was home, I took a local bus to her apartment, only a 10-minute ride, in a poor-looking neighborhood. Her name was listed on the front of the building, but when I buzzed, I continued to get a busy signal. While the phone line was busy, no one answered the door. I decided, shit, I better leave. After noticing a warning on the window that all visitors had to be checked by security and that trespassers would be arrested. It turned out that someone in the building on the floor below Gene's had been murdered earlier in the year." So Whitney called her again after he arrived home. She sounded somewhat disappointed that I hadn't been able to get a hold of her. She also told me that she'd hired a lawyer to represent her in regard to future interviews and that she was charging a measly $2,000 per interview, Joe. A lady's got to charge. I was later quoted $3,000 minimum by the lawyer because, of course, he had to get his cut. So I wrote to the lawyer and got a prompt reply, but was unable to ascertain what kind of pertinent information that she had that was worth $3,000 to me. So in early 1993, Peter Whitney wrote a letter to Moneybags Anthony Summers in which he mentioned that she would talk for $3,000. Maybe you could go talk to her. You go spend your $3,000, and I'll tell you where she is. And so at the time, Summers was working as a consultant for the PBS Frontline special, and Whitney was encouraged that he could arrange for AS to be interviewed for the program. Frontline was unwilling, though, to pay the $3,000 for an interview, but the program's director requested writer-researcher Gus Russo contact AS to see if she had to say anything of interest. So, yes, Timothy, you heard that correct. Russo contacted AS's lawyer, writing on a Frontline letterhead, and after furnishing him a death certificate for Lawrence Myers to assure her that he was now dead, he managed to obtain an interview with her. According to Gus Russo, Gene AS has never heard of David Ferrie and was quite perplexed by the nature of the questions. She does not recall any phone call from New Orleans on September 24th, 1963, although she did say the call may have been for Myers. But again, I don't think these people were understanding that you call the building, you get the building, and then you ask for an apartment number out of 140. So, you know. She also said that her contact with Jack Ruby on the night before the assassination was strictly social, Joe. Strictly social.
Of course.
And that there was no conversation about any plans to kill Kennedy. No, sir, no how, no way. Nor did she know of any contact Myers may have had with Ferry or G. Ray Gill. None of this interview was used in the Frontline November 1993 documentary, which dealt strictly with the life of Lee Harvey Oswald. But Peter Whitney spoke with Jean Ass again. Quote, "It is interesting to note that she appeared to become more relaxed about talking on the phone after learning that Myers is dead. I learned from Jean that she did not know that Kennedy was to visit Dallas while she was there, and that she was in the hotel room during the motorcade. She does not recall anyone named Joyce McDonald, Ruby's employee, who testified that she took ASA shopping. Amazingly, she's never read any book on the subject and was quite shocked to learn how many books refer to her specifically. She also had never read the FBI documents in the Warren volumes and was insulted at Myers' reference to her as being a dumb but accommodating broad." Yeah, well, you know. Yeah, what's yeah?
Yeah, and I have Joyce McDonald's FBI testimony from early December after you're done.
So did she take Jean A shopping? Is that what she said?
So from what I read, they were supposed to go shopping on a Saturday or Sunday, but of course that got delayed because of the obvious drama going on that weekend. I have it after you're done. I have it queued up here. So
Good. All right, so Joe, I'm gonna kick it back to you.
Okay.
So we can wrap this sumbitch up in a nice, neat little bow for everybody.
Sure. And I will be quick about it, or will try to be. So Gene Ass, or Asse, AASE, was actually Commission Exhibit 2266.
I say
And,
ass, you say A's.
Asse, yeah.
I say
And yeah, I'm down with it.
that's probably wrong as hell.
Yeah, we're
Mine
almost
may
certain.
be a little less wrong than yours.
Yeah. So,
We'll never know.
Arce, I'm saying like Danny Arce, stated that on Thursday, November 21st, she and Mr. Myers had dinner and then asked if she would care to meet a friend of his who, and this is an FBI document on, I believe, 12/2. Then went out to the Carousel Club to meet Jack Ruby. On arriving to the club, Myers introduced her to Ruby, and the three of them sat at a table near the doorway and chatted. She advised they stayed at the Cabana Motel. She estimated this to be approximately 11 p.m. Shortly thereafter, Ruby joined the party at the Cabana Hotel, where he stayed for, quote, a few minutes, end quote, and then departed, saying he had to return to his club. During this period, she said there was no discussion of the president's, just like you said there, Rob, assassination. She stated that they stayed in Dallas until Monday night, November 25th, and at which time they returned to Chicago. And she advised she did not see Ruby again during the stay. She stated her contact with Ruby was limited to this one occasion, and she is unable to furnish any information regarding him other than he introduced to her as the owner of the Carousel Club. Then you have Commission Document 2268, which is Edward Myers's FBI document on, I believe, December 2nd, 63. We've already gone over pretty much what was said in that. But interesting, Rob, Joyce Lee McDonald. So they're interviewing the stripper here of Ruby. And I forgot her name exactly.
I think it was Joy Dale.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think she was Harry Olsen's girlfriend.
Oh yeah, she was. Yeah, that was the one. Yes. Yeah.
And they had like a 2.5 hour conversation with Ruby in the vehicle, like the night of February 22nd.
Yeah, as Ruby was freaking out that he had to do this.
He had to do the thing, Joe.
Yeah, de-lifing mission that you're not coming back from. Sometime around October 10th, 63, Miss McDonald was employed as a part-time basis by Robert Craven, blah, blah, blah. And they go into all the stuff about a check that was bounced for $100, which is like $1,000. At about the time that Ruby cashed his check, Miss McDonald met Mr. Lawrence Myers from Chicago at the Carousel Club. During one of several evenings that McDonald saw Myers at the club, she had several drinks with him and was told by Myers that he had business interests in Chicago, Minneapolis, and Las Vegas, Nevada, and that headquarters was in Chicago. Miss McDonald did not know the relationship between Ruby and Myers, but felt that they had known each other only casually. And again, this is an early FBI report. 1 or 2 days after first meeting Myers, Miss McDonald and Myers at the fairgrounds in Dallas, and having already heard about Craven's bad check, Myers gave Miss McDonald a check signed Lawrence Myers in the amount of $200, close to about $2,000, made payable to Jack Ruby, drawn on an unknown Chicago bank, Rob, which I think is important. This check was to assist Craven and McDonald in operating the show at the fairgrounds, blah, blah, blah. Miss McDonald could not explain Myers' motive in giving her the $200 check, and indicated that Myers had never made any improper advances to McDonald, but she felt he would no doubt make some type of request of her in the future. So he's not talking about a sexual request. He's talking about a financial request, it seems to me.
Or he's just covering his ass.
Or that.
Because we know Jack Ruby did this kind of thing with his dancers. He would whore them out on the side. So,
yeah.
It's a little questionable here.
For sure. As they say.
Ask Myers to do that, on a trip away from the old lady. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, variety is the spice of life for sure, right?
You got money to spend, buddy? Shoot. I'm your guy, Jack Ruby.
Yeah. So they have another interview of stripper Adrienne Jacobs Maria Holt, who kind of talks about some of this. It's a little
sister of Chauncey Holt.
That would be funny.
Joking, people. Calm down.
Yeah, but she was staying in the Cabana Hotel room on a couple of days after the assassination, November 26th, and Jack Ruby. Oh, and she said Jack Ruby and Lee Harvey Oswald knew each other and that they had taken a trip together to Mexico last summer, which I'm not sure about, and that Ruby had been into the Cabana Hotel on the night of the November 22nd, which of course is true, with some, quote, rough boys, end quote. And that they had
rough
been,
boys.
yes,
And Myers Bowls, you got to watch out for them.
Yeah. And that they made a general nuisance to themselves. Holt advised no personal knowledge of Ruby and Oswald in their association, blah, blah, blah. But
it sounds believable, Joe. Especially when she calls them rough boys. That means they liked it rough.
Yeah.
Rough them up.
Well, I mean, there were a lot of rough boys in the Cabana.
You shut your whore mouth.
What was going on at the Cabana? A bunch of shady people, and I have one more thing real quickly. And then, hold on. Oh, wait. Shit. So I'm going back to Lawrence Myers' HSCA testimony here, Rob. Sorry, I forgot this part.
Yes.
And they're asking about Joyce McDonald because they obviously have the FBI report. And he's kind of like denying it. No, it doesn't ring a bell. Did you ever have any dealings with the Teamsters Union? No way, Meyer says. Joseph Ello? No way. Did you ever know of him? Joe Campisi nods head, which I guess means yes, because the next question is, how do you know Mr. Campisi? He owns the Egyptian restaurant in Dallas. When did you meet him? Oh, Lord. Well, when I first met Campisi, I would venture to say you're speaking about meeting him rather than going to his restaurant and eating. And he's like, yeah, whatever. The first time I met Campisi would probably have been 6 or 7 years ago, which is 77, 78. So you're talking 1970-ish, right? Far away from 63. I met him originally, blah, blah, blah. We have a golf tournament every year, and he plays in it. And the first time we met him, blah, blah, blah. As a matter of fact, Meyer says, I played with Campisi the other day, golf. Right before the HSCA, he's playing golf with Campisi. Do you think they talked about what he was going to say here?
I would venture to say probably so.
Yeah.
Because wasn't Campisi from Chicago originally?
I'm not sure about that, to be sure. But
it's in my brain somewhere for some reason.
Okay. It might be a connection. I can't confirm or deny. But they continue to ask, did you ever eat at the Egyptian Lounge? I could have. You see, I cannot. There's no way I could tell you positively. And this is exactly what Lawrence Myers' HSCA testimony is. I don't believe he had immunity like Lauren Hall, right? He was just being very broad. He did not give shit away, okay? And I read the whole thing today. Well, what did you meet him at this time? Blah, blah, blah. Does it refresh your collection to know that you and Gene West, right, Gene Asa, went to the carousel and sat down at the table with you? It's possible, Meyer says. Do you remember how long that encounter lasts? I don't know. I had the vaguest idea. The record indicates it was just about an hour. I was just about to say 45 minutes. Just enough to have a drink? Question. What is her name? So he's asking about the Gumar he brought, right? Gene West to Dallas. I couldn't tell you. I can't remember. And of course, they have this information before they're asking him, right? So it's like,
why is it transcribing what you're saying in real time right now on the screen?
That is a good question. I was trying not to have that distract me.
Testing. Is it doing it for me or just you?
I think it's me.
Okay.
Hold on.
Weird.
Yeah, hold on. So Lawrence Myers is asked about the grimoire he brought to him with Dallas, right? To Dallas. And he's saying, I can't even remember her name. And the HSA is saying, well, her name was Jean Assay, right? And he goes, I can't remember. Or Jean West? Question? West. That rings a bell of some kind. So he's completely like, playing.
Don't want to dig up that dog out of the yard.
Yeah. And especially Ruby's dead by this point. So, like, why does he have to admit to anything? So they're like, what did you and Ruby do? And Miss Jean West, well, we just drank and yak. And which maybe some girl strip or something.
What the
But this is an HCA transcript here. So he's saying, we didn't do anything. We just drank and yacked, which I mean like talked like 6 barbers, and maybe watched some girl strip or something. Did you go that night for any particular reason? No, just to take Jean, if that was her real name, to the club. If that was her real name, I mean, this guy is out of control. Did you know anyone at the club at this time? No. The record also indicates that around 10 p.m. that night, you and Jean West saw Jack Ruby at the carousel and suggested that he come by the Cabana for a drink later that night. He goes, it's highly possible. And this is consistent what he says in his whole testimony. It's highly possible, maybe. I don't recall. Like, and if you look at people like McWillie or other mafiosos, it's the same exact template. No specific answers, right? It's just, oh, whatever, it was so long ago. You have indicated previously that you believe Jack Ruby came in about 11:45 or midnight, and you had seen him at the carousel at the Cabana, right? It very well could be. And then I just have some random information, but just to give a little timeline here, Rob. 1:50 p.m. was when Oswald was arrested in the Texas theater.
Yes.
2:10 p.m. in the homicide office, the first picture was taken and distributed. 11:51 p.m., which is 1 minute after Oswald was arrested, Ruby called Ralph Paul, his business manager, who had stakes in two of his clubs, from the carousel to the bullpen for 3 minutes to 1:54.
And I believe
And
the
that's-
bullpen was in Fort Worth and was a homosexual male club that Oswald was allegedly cited in a time or two.
Yes. Yeah.
That part.
Yeah. So 10 minutes after that, Morgan Brown, who you had touched on, checked out of the Cabana Hotel suite he had shared with Jim Braden, who was being interrogated at the time at the Dallas Sheriff's Office. So while Jim Braden was taken from the Daltex to the DPD, the person he checked in the hotel room with, much like Larry Crayford, said, F that, I'm getting out of here. Crazy, huh?
Crazy. And that's how it goes. All right, I'm clearly singing way too much in this episode. I'm clearly delirious from multiple days of podcasting, hours and hours on it. So, Joe, to wrap this up, did you mention Hoffa? Or did I miss that?
No, I didn't. There is a document. Let me bring it up here real quick. There is a document that states that there was. Hold on. Okay, so there was an FBI document in September of 61 that says James Riddle Hoffa, Dallas Cabana Incorporated, DBA Dallas Cabana Motor Hotel, Dallas, Texas. And it names a bunch of people that we've kind of touched on, the Millers. There's a Martin Melcher in there, Doris Day, who was kind of like a celebrity of the time. And
Yes, and both with the whole Manson murders in California.
yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's the question is, if this company or holding company was owned by Hoffa, or just say more broadly, the mafia, right?
Well,
Would-
I wouldn't go that far. Hoffa's his own deal.
Okay, but I'm saying, like, if you were to do some shady things at a particular hotel or motel,
Well, right. Yeah.
would you want it to be controlled by people you have connections with?
Like Jimmy Hoffa. Yes. Friendly to the mob. Yes.
Right. Friendly to the
That's where you're-
cause, or you can cover things up on, and that's where that kind of goes with for me. And I haven't done enough research to really be like confident on it, but you have Ralph Paul, you have Lawrence Myers, and although Lawrence Myers wasn't technically connected with the mob, when you look at all the documents we talked about, it would be hard to imagine a scenario where he wasn't in some way connected.
I mean,
So-
he did the whole Jack Ruby maneuver of changing his highly Jewish name to something a little more Americanized. If your name's Hyman,
Mhm.
everybody's going to peg you as that.
So if shady shit was going down, it would make sense to kind of put some meetings at this type of hotel where you have some type of control over what could get out, right? It makes some sense.
Hey, Ted Rubenstein's in the chat. What's up, Ted?
Oh, I did.
Glad to see you here, buddy. It's awesome. Favorite characters front and center. Yep, Ted loves talking about the mafia. But yeah, it's interesting that the Cabana Hotel is owned by Jimmy Hoffa. That throws a big, giant wrench into things when you start thinking about implications of. I mean, why is he owning a hotel in Dallas? Did he own more hotels across the United States, or was this just a thing?
Mhm.
I don't know, but it's interesting. Hella interesting.
Very interesting. Yes, sir.
Because a lot of these lounge singers of the time, like Dean Martin, like Frank Sinatra, they went on these hotel tours, these circuits, and they were certainly mafia friendly singers, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, like Jada, right? Like everyone had connections and they would kind of rotate acts, right, to keep things fresh, right? That's I think what was going on.
Well, that and they just like today when you have these acts, big music acts going on tour. They're either doing small clubs or they're doing arenas or they're doing stadiums. It's no different. Just back then, there really wasn't that many arenas or stadiums.
Right.
And this is what they did, because these hotels had these big rooms to perform in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So very interesting stuff when it comes to the Cabana. What the hell is actually going on there? What are all these guys' ties to all of this stuff? Does it mean anything? We don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Does it mean Was it part of an operation like not related to the JFK assassination? Was it related to that? It's very hard to tell, but it's definitely was a place that the some shady people were staying, and who knows?
Jackson Hoffa might be buried under the cabana. He's under the swimming pool at the cabana.
Or the Six Flags. You never know.
You never know. All right, Joe. Grab the damn dog. Let's do the thing.
All right. She's sleeping.
Ruby,
You're being called. She's coming.
here,
coming.
girl.
She's
Time to
coming.
dance. Time
She
to
knows
dance.
your voice. She knows your voice.
Dance, I say. Where's he at? Where's Dean at? There he is.
Dino. Thank you, everyone. I know we kind of got in the weeds a little bit tonight. We will see you next week.
Yes,
Cabana
thanks for hanging out with us. Consistently for 50 or 60 people in here, 2 hours. Thank you. You're not worthy.
The greatest lies are told
Yes,
in the
Ruby.
name of truth. The greatest crimes are committed in the name of justice. The quotation is Jim Garrison's. It could be used for him or against him in this strange case. Good night.
Check us out next Wednesday. Members only. Be there. Kitty is in kitty jail. Tiny. I'm not risking puffy red eyes tonight. Sorry.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah, it takes me like 5 minutes just to pick her up. She's very, very squirmy.